Sudhanandana Rajajalara Sudhanandana Rajajalara Jamunathiya Vanachari Jamunathiya Vanachari Jaya Janavallabha Gopi Janavallabha Giribharadhari Yasodanandana Kantaraj Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Go Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 3 what?
331.
12. The movements of the living entities. Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 31st chapter, text 12. Janturuvacha tasyopasanam. You can repeat. Tasyo avitam jagad ichayatita ichayata nana tanor bhuvi chalach Charanarvindam Soham Vrajami Sharanam Hi Akuto Bhayam Me Yanidrishi Gatir Adharshi Asatha Anurupam Tasyopasanam avitam jagad ichayata. Tasyopasanam avitam jagad ichayata. Nanatano bhuvi chalat charanarvindam. Tano bhuvi chalat. Soham vrajami sharanam yukto bhayam me. Soham vrajami sharanam yukto yene drishi gatir darsha sato nurupa. Tasyopasanam avitum jagat ichayata. Avitum jagat ichayata. Nanatana bhuvi chalat charanarvindam. Soham brajami sharanam yat kuto bhayam me. Yene drishi gatir darsha sato nurupa. Chanturu vacha tasyopasanam avitam jagat ichayata. Nanatana bhuvi chalat charanarvindam. Soham vrajami sharanam yukto bhayam me. Yene drishi gatiradarsha sato nurupa.
Janturuvacha Tasyopasannam avitum jagadichayata Nana tanor bhuvi chalaccharanarvindam Soham vrajami sharanam hyakuto bhayam me. Yene drishi gatiradarshya sato nurupa. Janturuvacha तस्योपसन्नमवितुं जगदिच्छयात्ता नानातनोर्विचलच्चरणारविन्दम् सोऽहं व्रजामि शरणं यकुतो भयं मे येने दृशि गतिरदर्श्य सतोऽनुरूपा
Turuvacha
तस्योपसन्नमवितुं जगदिच्छयात्ता
Nanotanobhuvichalacharanarvindam Soham vajami sharanam yukato bhayam me. Ladies. Janturu vacha Asyopasanam avitam jagadichayata Nutano bhuvi chalaccharanarvindam Soham bhajami sharanam yukato bhayam me. Darsha Sator Rupa. Any other brave ladies here? Nanatano vivichalaccharanarvindam Soham bhajami sharanam yukato bhayam me. Word meanings. Janturu vacha. The human soul says, Tasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Upasanam, having approached for protection. Avitum, to protect. Jagat, the universe. Ichaya, by his own will. Atananatanoho. You got thrown off. It's the suffix of it's the suffix on the last word of the first line and the two words of the second line. So it's ata nana tano. All right, let's try it one more time. Ata nana tano. I'll have to come back next year and we'll go back and practice. Okay. Who accepts various forms? Bhuvi, on the earth. Chalat, walking. Charana Aravindam, the lotus feet. Sa aham, I myself. Brajami, go. Sharanam, unto the shelter. He, indeed. Akuta bhayam, giving relief from all fear. Me, for me. Jena, by whom? Idrishi, such. Gatihi, condition of life. Adharshi, was considered. Asataha, impious. Anurupa, befitting. Translation. You had the word meanings up there. Oh, how come we didn't get that one? Did I say it wrong? Anyway, translation. The human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Why don't we say it in unison together? The human soul, everyone together, the human soul says, I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear, and from him I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. Translation, purport. The word Chalach Charanardavindam refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who actually walks or travels upon the surface of the world. For example, Lord Ramachandra actually walked on the surface of the world, and Lord Krishna also walked just like an ordinary man. The prayer is therefore offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who descends to the surface of this earth, or any part of this universe, for the protection of the pious and the destruction of the impious. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that when there is an increase of irreligion and discrepancies arise in the real religious activities, the Supreme Lord comes to protect the pious and kill the impious. This verse indicates Lord Krishna. Another significant point in this verse is that the Lord comes ichchaya, by his own will. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Sambhavami atmamayaya. I appear at my will, by my internal potential power. He is not forced to come by the laws of material nature. It is stated here, ichchaya. He does not assume any form, as the impersonalists think, because he comes at his own will, and the form in which he descends is his eternal form. As the Supreme Lord puts the living entity into the condition of horrible existence, he can also deliver him, and therefore one should seek shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna demands, give up everything and surrender unto me. And it is also said in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who approaches him does not come back again to accept a form in material existence, but goes back to Godhead, back home, never to return. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvise Shunyavari Paschatya Dasatarine. So here in this purport, Prabhupada says many things which we are familiar with, that Krishna descends to this world to save the pious. Of course, Mahaprabhu comes to save everybody. Pious, impious, good, bad, whatever. But I think a better way of looking at this, rather than, this is a philosophical point, that God comes, he descends to this world with a mission to save us. Otherwise, he has no need to come here, right? This world is for us. It's not, he didn't create this world for his enjoyment, although ultimately everything is for his enjoyment. But specifically, particularly, this world was created as a playground for us. So he doesn't have to come here. So if he comes here, why is he coming? Because he likes New York City? Because he likes the beach? He wants to check things out? Well, of course he likes Vrindavan. That's his eternal home. But as Prabhupada says, he's coming here for us. But I think it's better and more powerful if we think he's coming for me, not us. Because us means I can be in Maya, Krishna's coming for everybody, he won't miss me, I'm just one. As opposed to, Krishna is coming for you. That's why Krishna came. That has a different effect, doesn't it? Like, if Krishna's coming for me, that means I have to get my act together. Right? I have to get my blank together, as they say commonly. I have to get my cow dung together, like that. If Krishna's just descending as a principle, philosophical principle, he descends, we understand that as a philosophy, it doesn't touch us personally. And when we study philosophy, this can become a problem. We take things as general principles, not personal, not a personal, not relating to it personally. Right? Just like Prabhupada is quoting the verse here. Krishna says, Sharanam Braja. The word Sharanam is used here in 18, in the verse Prabhupada quotes. Just surrender to me, Sharanam Braja. If we think Krishna is speaking to me personally and asking me personally to surrender, it has a different effect, don't you think? Just like, what if you had a dream last night in which Krishna came and he spoke this verse to you and he was pointing at you? Sharanam Braja, Ekam Sharanam Braja. Sarva Dharma Parityaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. Aham Tam. He's pointing at you and you're like, oh, Krishna. And then Krishna says, I have come to get you. All right. That's personal, right? So is Krishna a person? Yes or yes, of course. Well, he can be impersonal also, but he's a person. Are you a person? Yes. You have two people here. What's that called? A relationship. It's called a relationship and a personal philosophy, not a general philosophy. Because otherwise the philosophy is general. It's just a point. It's philosophy. It's a tattva. And you're looking at the tattva. You don't want to look at the tattva. You are part of that tattva. It's you, right? So let us think. Let us now. From now on, if you haven't done this, when you think of the philosophy, think of it as Krishna is personally speaking to you. Just like, oftentimes Prabhupada said, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, but he's actually speaking to us. So Prabhupada says he's speaking to us, and we have to think he's speaking to me. All right, so Krishna is saying, I have descended to this world to find you and take you back to Godhead. Wow. Interesting, isn't it? I've descended to this world. Why did Mahaprabhu come? To save you. We'll say Mahaprabhu came to save the fallen souls. Okay, that's a tattva. And you can say Mahaprabhu came. Why did he come? Because he knew I needed him. He came to save me. Now that he came to save me, what am I doing? I can't neglect it. I can't say, well, next life, it's too hard, whatever, 108, I have to write a book, 108 excuses, why not? 108 excuses for not surrendering. So when you make it personal, you can't use those excuses. Have you heard any of those excuses before? Have you made any? I'm not that austere. Prabhu, you should get up for Mangalarti. Prabhu, I'm not that austere. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I'm sorry I asked. Prabhu, you should do this. No, you don't understand. You have to be real. Oh, I thought what you're supposed to do is real. I thought that is eternal devotional service. No, you have to be real. That's not real for me. So what's real for me? Being in Maya is real for me. No. So, Hare Krishna, yeah. That's my constitutional position, to be in Maya. So I'm being real, I'm being Sat. No, Sat means eternal. So it's hard to make those excuses when we personalize that Krishna has come for me. Another point that is being made in the purport is Prabhupada is referring to the word sharanam, which is also in the verse, sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam. Sharanam has been translated in Bhagavad Gita as surrender. Here it is translated as shelter and protection. So, in this verse, a living entity is praying, and he's saying, I am praying for your shelter because you're the only one who can give me shelter. I have no shelter anywhere else. And interestingly, when Krishna says, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja, he's saying, Eka means one, right? And translated in this verse in Bhagavad Gita as only. So Krishna is saying, Ekam Sharanam, I'm your only shelter. You have no others. There's nothing else that can give you shelter. So when Krishna says, surrender unto me, another way of translating that is Krishna saying, I am your only shelter. So it's not, you could say, it's a statement rather than a demand. You should, sarva dharma prityaja, give up all religions, and I will protect you. Because the next line, aham tvam sarva papebhyo, Krishna is saying, don't worry. You don't have to worry about anything, because sharanam, shelter, you're under my shelter, only I can give you shelter. Don't take shelter of anything else, because there is no other shelter anywhere. So it's interesting, I was thinking about this. As we know, every religion says ekam, isn't it? You know, like if you ever get bewildered by, but Jesus said he's the only way. Am I in the wrong movement? Should I go out and become a Christian because Jesus said he's the only way? Anyone ever think like that? Or maybe not think like that, but think why it's like that. You say, oh, but in this verse of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, I'm the only way, and you have no shelter. There is no other shelter anywhere. Whoa. That's interesting, isn't it? We have our Jesus is the only way verse. We have our Krishna is the only way, right? It's right here. If someone says Jesus is the only way, you say, no, Krishna is the only way. But if we say Krishna is the only way, that includes Jesus, right? Because Jesus is preaching about Krishna. So if surrendering to God is the only way, Jesus is the only way. No, surrendering to God is the only way, and he's anyone who teaches you to surrender to God. That's the only way. Can you have more than one only way? In the material world, maybe not. In the spiritual world, it's big enough for more than one only way. Or as Prabhupada said, the only way, what is religion? Religion means to love God. Anyone who's teaching you to love God, he's teaching you a religion. So here is the Krishna is the only way. Take shelter of Krishna. What does Jesus say? Accept me, take shelter, and I will free you from sins. Sound familiar? Isn't that interesting? Sounds very familiar. So if a Christian says, Jesus says, surrender, he'll free you from sin, you go, that's just like this. Can I read you this verse from Bhagavad Gita? Krishna is the father of Jesus, and he said the same thing. So, the reason this word sharanam is important, because there's, in the English language as we know it, understand it, the connotation of shelter is different than the connotation of surrender, right? Like, surrender to me and you don't know what's going to happen. What am I going to do with you? Like, lock you up in a room and just give you water and bread for the rest of it? The idea of surrender is you lose independence. So the word sharanam, it's a little more warm and fuzzy, isn't it? Shelter. No, come, I'm going to give you shelter. You'll have food, room, everything, whatever you need, I'll give it to you. You don't have to worry. Sharanam. So then you might say, well, why did Prabhupada use the word surrender? Why did he didn't use the word, why did he translate sharanam as surrender when it actually means protection? Well, Krishna is saying, I'll give you protection, but of the 6 symptoms of surrender, what is one of the symptoms of surrender? That Krishna is my protector, right? So Krishna will always protect me, and Krishna will always maintain me. So the meaning of surrender is protection. It's the same thing. So it's just for us, when we isolate that word surrender, it's like, ooh, Prabhu, you need to surrender. That's heavy, right? But all we're saying is you need to take shelter of Krishna. Now, but let's go back to the word surrender. It's not that bad. Because in the purport here, Prabhupada is saying, he's making a distinction between why Krishna comes and why we come. So he's just making the point. I think it's a point which is not understood by all people. He's saying that we come to this world being forced by our karma. And Krishna comes to this world by his what? By his sweet will. So, if someone asked you, what is the definition of God? Or what is your God? What does he do? What is he? What's the idea here? The idea of God for us is this word, sweet will. He can do whatever he likes, whenever he likes, however he likes. And we never say, I don't think that was right. As some people do, right? Krishna is dancing with other men's wives. That is not moral. I don't think that's right. And a devotee will think, whatever Krishna wants to do, it's right. Shishava parodatam panastumam. What is Radharani saying? Whatever you do, it's perfect. Even if what you do causes me distress, it's perfect because you are God, and therefore I am your... Okay, this word is worse than surrender. Fasten your seatbelt. I am your slave. Oh. The next time you're on Sankirtan, the New York Times comes up to you and says, what's your philosophy? Of course you're going to say, our philosophy is we're all slaves of Krishna. Wow, that'll make headlines. At least everyone will read the name Krishna. We're all slaves of Krishna. And then we, of course, will go on to say, it's a choice. We all have to be slaves. So we're choosing to be slaves of Krishna. But if you don't choose to be a slave of Krishna, you're going to be a slave of something. If you ever get in a confrontation with an atheist, just ask them this question. It'll kind of confuse them. What is your God? And I say, I don't believe in God. No. What is the highest God? Definition of God is the highest thing. So you don't believe in a being. What is your God? Is it money? Is it power? Is it science? Is it education? What is it? What do you surrender to? What have you surrendered to? If you do a PhD, you are surrendered to that topic. Anyone done a PhD? We need some testimony here. All right. What about a master's? right? You're surrendered, right, to that topic isn't it? Pretty much you eat, sleep, and think that. So PhD is just spending more time, right? It's not 2 or 3 years, it's like 4 or 5. So do a PhD, you are surrendered to that topic. Get married, you ought to surrender to the situation when you're married. Like sometimes a brahmachari is thinking, should I get married? Shouldn't I get married? And so he understands, if I get married, in addition to surrendering to Krishna, there are other people I will have to be surrendered to. I have to fulfill their needs and their desires. And so he may think, yes, this is good, I want to do it, or he might think it's not good for me. Better I don't. I just want to surrender to Krishna. But if we don't, we surrender to something, right? Yes? Surrender to your desire. Have you ever surrendered to your desire? Well, have you ever not? Yeah, okay. So surrender does not have to be a scary word when we understand our position as devotees is actually we're slaves of Krishna. Whatever he wants, that's fine. It's okay. Right? I can't say, that's not fair, Krishna's making me do this. No, I'm just a slave. And I'm a happy slave. We'll tell the New York Times that. What is Krishna consciousness? It's to be a happy slave. Have you heard of happy slaves? Did you know there are happy slaves? No, I didn't know that. Yeah, you fall in love, you become a happy slave. You'll do anything your lover wants. Right? Happy slaves. Yes? Isn't it? There's so many songs about it. I'd cross mountains for you. I'd swim oceans for you. Happy slave. Yeah, so we're very happy slaves. Yeah. And what does Prabhupada say? So many places, so many times. If you serve the king, you get to live like the king. You live in the palace. You get to eat, you'll eat what the king eats and so forth. So being a Krishna slave is a good thing. There's a lot of benefits. Isn't it? A lot of benefits, yeah. So, whenever I saw Prabhupada, I had this overwhelming feeling, overwhelming emotion, that I just want to be your slave. And it was without any hesitation. I never thought, where is this going to lead if I become a slave? I thought, this is the person for whom I want to be a slave, and that will bring me the highest happiness. That's the emotion of surrender. So if we are progressing in devotional service, that idea of giving myself more to Krishna is spontaneous, it's natural, it's happy. The other day I was dealing with some devotees' problems. And it was kind of one of those situations that maybe the problem is eternal. So whatever you do, it doesn't go away. It's just like the bubble in the carpet. And I was thinking, like Prabhupada said, we've come to, when he was in Juhu, he said, we've come to Krishna consciousness for eternal bliss, but now I have eternal headache. Because the Juhu project was just one headache after another. So I was thinking about this, and it was wasn't pleasant. What I had to deal with, it wasn't pleasant, it was disturbing me, it was on my mind, in my heart. And then I thought, thank you, Krishna, for allowing me to serve you. This is actually nectar. This is it's just part of surrender. It's service. It's not like I like it, I don't like it. It's just the surrendered soul is just, he's happy to have service. And I think I was feeling this way because I was listening to a lot of the Leelas of Jayananda Prabhu, as we just celebrated his disappearance. I have heard these Leelas before. I was witness to some of them, and I was listening to them again and reflecting on them, and I think that was Jayananda's mood. It wasn't like there was nectar service and service that wasn't nectar. There was just service. And so, I mean, naturally we have tendencies, so we're inclined towards certain services. But in a broader sense, he didn't see like this service was difficult. He just saw it as service, like it's all surrender. I'm just a slave. And surrender, we can also say surrender means love. So all the service, if it's Prabhu, you have to surrender. The dreaded surrender, that word, I can't stand that word anymore. I hear it too much. Rather, we should hear the word love. So I can show my love to Krishna through doing service, surrendering to service. So Jayananda was just like, for him, all service was the same. It was just like, this is service to Prabhupada, and I love Prabhupada, and anything I can do for Prabhupada makes me happy, because I'm just his slave. And his will, his desire, that if I can do his will and fulfill his desire, that makes me happy. That's surrender. That's what it means. What do you think? You want to try it out? See how it works? Test it out today, my dear devotees. Make an experiment. Just today only. Surrender. Take full shelter of Krishna. Serve him as a happy servant, whatever he wants. Any difficulty you undergo, just take it as fortune that I can serve Krishna. This is just a way to manifest my love. In fact, have you ever noticed that when things are difficult, it's actually a bigger opportunity to manifest love for Krishna? Like we say, how can you show your love for Krishna? Offer a flower, fruit, leaf, water, patra, pushpam, palam to him, with love. But, okay, that's nice. When you offer the deities bhoga, offer it with love. When you do kirtan, sing with love. When you do service, serve with love. But when there's a difficulty, when you have to face a challenge that you don't want to face, if you had a choice, you wouldn't do it, but you don't have a choice, you have to do it. You can think, this is an opportunity to show my love, to show Krishna that even though by my nature I would not do this naturally, or I'm dealing with a situation that is really difficult and I really don't want to do it, this is an opportunity to sharanam, to show my surrender, my love, my shelter to you. You've given me an opportunity. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to show my love. Because if I didn't love you, there's no way I would ever do this. You ever have that experience? Sometimes you're doing something in Krishna consciousness and you're thinking, if I weren't a devotee, I would never do this, right? Like I think for some devotees, going out on the street, Harinam, dressed in a dhoti, and for some devotees, maybe initially they're thinking, what am I doing? What if my mother sees me? What if my friend sees me? I can't believe I'm doing this. As one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, you had so much power that you, I don't know if he said it this way, but I'll say it this way because it's more dramatic. You had so much power that by your association, we shaved off our long hair, put on diapers, went out in the street and jumped up and down like popcorn. So he was reflecting like, how did that happen? How did I do that? Do you ever think like that? Especially when your mother comes and it's like, well, what happened to my son? He was such a good boy. Now look at you. And so, whether this is difficult for you or something, that moment, like, what am I doing? I can't believe I'm doing this. That is an opportunity for us. We should think, thank you, Krishna, because you're giving me an opportunity to love you more because I really don't want to do this. Or this is really difficult, or this is putting me in anxiety. And anytime you can show Krishna your love, what happens? You get closer to Krishna. What happens when you get closer to Krishna? You become happier, isn't it? This is the paradox of spiritual life. Anything you do that brings you closer to Krishna makes you happy. May not make you happy in the moment because it's difficult. But when you do it, you feel, it was good I did that. I really feel like, I'm happy I got up. I'm happy I chanted my rounds this morning. It was difficult, I was tired, whatever. But when it's over, you feel like, yes, that was good. We have experiences we can remember from the past, difficulties, and we think, it was so good, I went through that difficulty, I learned so much. And we think, I never want to go through that again. It was hell. But after, it brought us closer to Krishna, and so we're happy. Yes? You're going through it, it's an ordeal sometimes. Now, flip that idea on its side. Have you ever done something that you like to do, that you enjoy doing, either seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing, touching, that didn't bring you closer to Krishna? And after you did it, you felt a vacuum inside, almost like a depression. You ever felt like that? Isn't that interesting? Like you do the thing. You say, I always wanted to do this. And then you did it, but it didn't help your Krishna consciousness, or it actually pulled you away. And then you just feel empty, like somebody pulled bhakti out of your heart and threw it in the trash can. Or for the sake of our Prabhu from England, and I guess the Indians also, the dustbin. You can only put dust in that one. You can't put trash, only dust. I think we're more sophisticated in America, more precise. It's a can for trash. In England, it's only a can for dust. Must have a lot of dust there, right? Or maybe it came from India. There's definitely a lot of dust in India. So, it feels like something was pulled out of our heart, doesn't it? Isn't that interesting? That, like, if I said, Prabhu, what is your, like, materially speaking, what really would make you happy? It's like, well, before I was a devotee, I was this. I did this. I love to go to movies. Hey, what movie? Get Netflix, any movie you want. I'll buy you speakers. You could, I'll buy you a screen, you can watch. So you sit down and watch your favorite movie with the best speakers and the biggest screen and the most comfortable chair. And it's some, whatever. Somebody's falling in love, somebody's cheating, somebody's getting beaten up, shot, right? Trucks are turning over, and you go, I love this stuff. Then after you watch the movie, how do you feel? You do not feel like you're full of shit anymore, do you? You feel like you're full of the other stuff. Yeah. You feel like somebody just like took a vacuum cleaner and sucked out my bhakti. Isn't it? Something like that. So this is the thing that you like to do. This is your happiness materially. And it just makes you feel empty. Isn't that interesting? So if doing something can make us feel empty, the opposite also. Doing something I don't like is a manifestation of my love for Krishna. And it makes me so happy. Isn't that interesting? Don't you find that interesting? Okay, I'll end with the story. We want to take time for questions. Maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, but in, I don't know, maybe like 73, 74, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, the Hare Krishna movement was visible at almost every airport in the United States. So you get on your flight, you meet a devotee. You get off your flight, you meet a devotee. You come back a week later, you meet a devotee. You fly back to where you started from. It's like we were everywhere, right? And so I was in San Diego at that time, and there were some workers at the airport that really didn't like us. San Diego at that time was a conservative town, and conservative media just portrays us as in a very bad light. So it was interesting. I would do Sankirtan in San Diego, and people had a certain view of us. But if you went north a little, into Orange County or LA area, they had a different view. And I was like, why do they think differently? I said, it's a different newspaper. So it was a very conservative newspaper, and they had certain views about us. It was interesting. And then, we go to Los Angeles. They're reading the Los Angeles Times. They don't say the same things about us. Maybe it's a more liberal paper, and people felt differently about us. Just, it was just very interesting. Now, I don't know. Now, who knows what everybody reads? They read everything. A million opinions online. But anyway, so in San Diego, very conservative, and really bad PR was going on. So these workers at the airport didn't like us. And there was a few of them that really didn't like us, and their bliss was to make us miserable, and the more miserable they could make us, the more blissful they would become. So, some of these guys were like the ones who directed airplanes or did luggage. And at that time, San Diego was a small town, so certain parts of the day, the airport there were no flights, or very few. So these workers had nothing to do, so that was the time they could come and harass us. So one guy was like 12 feet tall and 500 pounds, and what he liked to do, I don't know, we called him the lummox. We had to give them names, like lummox asura. What he liked to do was like walk really fast and knock into us. That was like one of his leelas, So you're distributing books, or you're standing looking for people, and he just knocks into you like that, right? Another thing he liked to do was, after you would distribute a book, he would go up to the people and say, this is just the cold brainwashing. They're this, they're that. You don't want this book, do you? No, I don't want this book. And he takes the book. And then he takes the book and just comes up in front of you and tears it up. Like he stares you in the face, like one hair away from your nose, and tears up the book. Sometimes they would get the books, tape the covers of the books, write obscene things on the covers of the books and tape them. Sometimes they'd go up while you're talking to someone and just, this is the cold, this, that, you don't want them, this is dangerous, get out of here. And, he's wearing a uniform of sorts, so that people think, they're not supposed to be here, they're bad people, they run away. So it got so bad that some of the women who were doing book distribution, I think at that time maybe it was all women, and I was out there supervising them. I think all the men were traveling, and I was a Sankirtan leader. So at that time, I think it was only women going to the airport. And there was a time when airports had phone booths. You know what a phone booth? Anybody know what a phone booth? Are you old enough to know? A phone booth, yeah. A place where you make a phone call, because there were no smartphones. They didn't exist. If you wanted to make a phone call, you had to go into a phone booth. Could you imagine how austere that was? And you had to have coins and put them in. And they timed it so you're talking, put in 25 more cents, otherwise you lose the call. Can you imagine living that way? Wow. Hard to imagine, right? And they would sit in the phone booth crying because this lummox and his friends were disturbing us so much. It was like they couldn't, it was so, can you imagine? It got so bad, they just sat down and cried. I said, I can't do this anymore. So difficult. And then they would come back to the temple at the end of this hard day of Sankirtan with the lummox and the lummox asurets and asuras, friends, and take a shower, get dressed, and go to the Sandhya Arti and dance and chant in ecstasy. Maybe you could say, they were ecstatic that they weren't at the airport anymore. But the ecstasy was that they engaged in this difficult service for Krishna, this austerity. That was the ecstasy that they were experiencing. Isn't that interesting? So anything brings you closer to Krishna, that surrender, that brings ecstasy. Anything which we surrender to make us happy materially, leaves us feeling empty. So I hope you no longer ever freak out when you hear the word surrender, but instead you think, sweet surrender. Actually, we're making a t-shirt and it's going to say, sweet surrender. So now when we think of surrender, we can think, sweet surrender. I can't wait to surrender. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I went past 9 o'clock. Class ends at 9, is that correct? So we should stop?
You can ask questions.
All right. I've been given permission, so if it goes long, it's not my fault. Yes?
Sometimes in lectures there is a concept that comes up of the devotee who wants to surrender to Krishna, but at the same time he is hugging his material desires like a tree.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want you, Krishna, but then he's hugging his material desires. So if you can please share your realizations on this.
Well, Prabhupada said to surrender doesn't mean to surrender your intelligence, because that can be sometimes a misunderstanding of surrender. Just like surrender means I just give everything blindly, fully, but a few days later, a few weeks later, you realize that's not working for me because I can't maintain balance, sanity, I'm not happy, I'm stressed, and so forth. So there's two things that are going on, and we all have to face this. One is intellectual surrender, and one is heart surrender. And what I mean by that is, I understand intellectually I would like to be surrendered on this level. But my heart is not there yet. By heart, I mean let's say adhikari, my qualification to surrender that way. So I want to be renounced on this level. And that makes sense to me, because I've heard so many classes that say, this is the level we want to strive for, and anything less than that would be imperfect, and I'm a perfectionist, and I strive for the best, and I want to, this is the best, then why not do it? Why not go for the best? But the heart has attachments, samskaras. So my heart, my desire, my level of Krishna consciousness today is not here. My mind is here. So my mind can go there, it's easy, because I don't have to do anything. I just accept it, right? Oh, that's a beautiful idea. Give everything to Krishna, 100%. But now I have to deal with who I am, like how fast my car can drive. So then we have to create this balance. where we don't give up the ideal, but we don't become blindly surrendered, so we're like shooting in the dark. We have no idea of like how long it's going to take me to get there. So it's like you walk into the gym, and I convince you to exercise. And you walk in the gym and say, yeah, Mahatma Prabhu's got me fired up. And you go to the like 200 pounds, and you're like, you can't get it off the ground. Or you've got it like 1 inch off the ground, and then you tore a muscle in your back. So I just forgot to tell you, start with like 50 pounds just to, to be safe. And then, you can probably handle that. And, then go to 70, then go to 90, just. So that's the problem that we all face. We understand, and you see this with so many devotees, especially people who come to ISKCON who are like, they're very success oriented, and they were very successful before they were devotees. So they'll always shoot for the highest. Well, like, what's the best thing? What's the highest thing? It's like, well, just be a brahmachari book distributor for life. Okay, that's it, right? That's what or be a brahmachari preacher, right? And they go, running the race really fast, and they didn't realize, and perhaps no one guided them, and say, well, wait a minute, pace yourself. Let's see how this goes. Or not only that, it's just that's too much weight for you. Work your way up. So we all have to balance that. And it's difficult because we want what's in the mind, and we get frustrated when we realize I'm not qualified for that. I'm not there yet. It's very frustrating. But it's also frustrating not to acknowledge where I'm at, because then I'll live in an illusion. I'll just always be trying to lift 200 pounds and I can't. It's like, hello, you can't. I know, but I want to. Maybe tomorrow. So it's just a reality. We're conditioned souls. And then you can say, all right, so surrender for me is going to look different than surrender for you, than surrender for her, than surrender for him. So what is surrender to you? All right? So I always say we have to use the word sustainability. What is surrender? Surrender to the highest ideal that you can follow and sustain it. Because if you surrender here and then you come down to here, have you ever done this one? You try for this, you fail, you go back up, you fail, you go back up, you fail. Like, hello, maybe in the middle, maybe like your place is somewhere in the middle. It's kind of obvious, right? But we keep going back up because this is our ideal. And we don't want to live anywhere below that ideal, even though we're not qualified. So we go up, we hang out there for a while, and then we fall. Usually fall below where we could have sustained ourselves. So sustainability is much better than being a yo-yo, isn't it? Yo-yo bhaktas don't make it back to Godhead. And Krishna says that. I mean, that's a second chapter. Krishna is saying, be steady, be equal in happiness and distress, something like that. So it's basically the same thing. Don't be a yo-yo bhakta. Happy when I'm successful, miserable when I'm not. No, just find the middle ground. Learn. So we all need to do that. And so here's the problem. The problem is, it's not a problem. It only becomes a problem if we misunderstand. When you go to class, you're going to hear the highest ideals, because that's what we talk about. Bhāgavatam is Amala Purana, so it's talking about pure bhakti. So we're going to hear the highest standards, and it's going to go in our head and we're going to think, yes, this is the highest standard. This is what we should strive for. Have you ever noticed? I don't know if they do this anymore, but when we were young devotees and full of vim and vigor and fanaticism, sometimes our classes were really heavy. Like really heavy. And so, sometimes someone would give a class about reducing eating and sleeping. You ever hear one of those classes? And so, for breakfast, the server's serving, says, give me half of what you normally give me. Give me 1/10 of what you normally give me. Everybody's like eating like 6 grains of rice, half a cup of milk. That's it, Prabhu, like fired up from the class. How long did that last? the class was really good, it lasts 3 days. If the class was okay, it lasts 2 days. If the class was good, it lasts 1 day, and if the class wasn't that great, it lasts 1 meal. Have you seen that before? Isn't it? Like, as a fired up class, Prabhu, I'm so inspired. Yeah, but the thing you have to realize is you have your nature, and probably that class didn't change your nature. It just inspired you. So that's the problem. It goes to our head. I think, yes, this is the standard. This is what we should do. And every class we hear that. So we get all these ideas in our head, isn't it? This is the standard. But we never calculate, say, wait a minute. He said in the class that we need to press 200 pounds 20 times in 10 sets of 20. So you go to the gym, when you call us from the hospital, you were trying to do that. You destroyed yourself. Right? Yes? Can you relate to this? Yeah. So it's just like, we always have to understand, okay, it's in my head, this is my ideal, don't give up on it, but what is sustainable? What will get me to that ideal? So I may have to, start from here. I don't like this, I don't want to be like this, but, well, hello, that's who you are. Just acknowledge it, be okay with it, because that's who you are, but now you can go up. Don't give up your ideal. And some of us give up the ideal because we can't do 200. Well, if I can't do 200, forget the gym. And you just eat potato chips and go to sleep. Have you ever done that one? Well, if you can't be perfect, might as well be as imperfect as possible. Yes? Yeah. It's a good question. Thank you for asking that. And you should understand when people are giving class and you're just getting the highest ideal, and it's up to you to practically translate then how you will do that. And if you don't practically translate it, you become like a bona fide Bhakta Burfi. Bhakta Burfi misunderstands everything. That's his qualification. So it's easy to misunderstand, isn't it, if you don't apply it realistically to where you're at. And then it's not easy because we don't want to be out there, but if we're out there, that's where we're at, so we have to be okay. How can you have to be okay with where you're at, because why not be? It doesn't help not to be okay. It's just, it's like one devotee said, Prabhupada loves us so much that he accepts us where we're at, but he loves us too much to allow us to stay where we're at. So you accept, okay, this is my nature, these are my samskars, but I don't want to stay there because I have my goal. So your real self-love is to get up there. And your self-love down here is to accept this is who I am, and your self-love is to get up there. So both things. Right? That makes sense? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the very enlightening class. So my question was, sometimes, as you said, in the Bhāgavatam classes, the ideals are spoken about, but practically something, we have to do something that is gradual. But at the same time, is also seen that some of, even me, sometimes, because I'm not there, that ideal, sometimes what happens is, whatever platform I'm at, one thing is I can get accustomed to that platform, become very comfortable.
Yes.
And the other thing is I can justify that as pure devotion itself.
Justify that as?
As a pure devotion in itself. That itself is the ideal.
Yeah, okay.
So it's okay if I'm not there, because
Yeah.
this itself is perfect.
Yeah.
So how do we protect ourselves from that
Well,
danger?
I think the answer is simple. Why would you want to justify anything less than what you can be, like manifesting your potential? Like it doesn't make sense we'd want to justify it, does it? Like, I want to be the best I can be. I want to be as pure as I can be, and I want to be advancing in Krishna consciousness. So why would I, if that desire is there, why would I look to justify anything less than that? Because all justification does is make you so you can fall short and not feel guilty, right? So to not feel guilty, you don't have to justify. To not feel guilty, you just have to accept this is where you're at. So then you don't need any justification anymore, because you're entering it with the wrong mood. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be here and I feel guilty. So the only dysfunctional way I know to deal with my guilt is to justify. And then if I justify, well, everything's okay. I'm doing pure devotional service. And then now I got rid of the guilt. That's a dysfunctional way of getting rid of guilt. And you shouldn't have the guilt in the first place. So it's two problems already. I want to be pure. I want to be more advanced, for sure. Right? Don't you? Yeah. And if I justify where I'm at as an excuse for not advancing, then I've just sabotaged myself. Because now, even though I want to advance, I won't really try because I don't need to, because I've just created this formula in my head. So to get rid of the guilt, or not have it in the first place, it's just, I am doing the best I can right now with who I am, with my level of advancement, etc. This is, I don't have to feel guilty. This is just, I'm trying and I'm sincere, but I want to be better. So then that justification, you don't need it anymore because there's nothing to justify. So you created a false concept of yourself that you had to justify, right? Yeah. I'm not on this level. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, not only is there nothing wrong with it, if you said you're on that level, there would be something wrong with that, because you're not, right? So there's nothing wrong with not being on this level. There's everything right with not being on that level, because you can't be on that level until you're a pure devotee. So you're not on that level. Hello, of course not. Nothing wrong with that. It's just normal. You're not lifting 200 pounds. Of course, it's your first day in the gym. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just normal. But you want to lift 200, and you don't have to feel guilty that you're lifting. I go, Prabhu, how much do you weigh? You say, well, I weigh 150. And when was the last time you lift weights? Well, actually, I've never lifted weights in my life. Okay, you did 50 pounds today? Yeah, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So then all of a sudden, there's nothing to be guilty of. It's like, well, that's good, Is it good you're a devotee? Is it good you do devotional service? How many of your friends are devotees? Well, probably 0 or 1, right? How many people in your neighborhood are devotees? So you're doing really good. It's just you're looking at this, that makes you look bad. No, you just look at that. That's the goal. And you understand that's the end goal. That's going to take a while. So it doesn't make you look bad. It's just where you're going. Like, you could get depressed when you get in the car and you're driving to New Jersey and go, we're not in New Jersey, I'm so depressed. No, Prabhu, we're going. We'll get there. Right? So, yeah, that's important understanding, don't you think? So every time you make an excuse, you're trying to dissipate some guilt that maybe, I can't say always, but maybe you shouldn't have in the first place. It's like a false dilemma that you have the guilt, because you're just on course. You're like, hey, we'll be in New Jersey in 25 minutes. We're like, everything is fine, don't worry. No, I feel so guilty. We're not in New Jersey. No, it takes 25 minutes. It's okay. You're all right. No. It's the traffic. That's the problem. It's the traffic. That's why it's taking longer. Yeah, so you want to make some excuse, but you don't need to. So remember this. Prabhupada loves us so much that he accepts us, but he loves us too much to allow us to stay where we're at. I love myself so much that I can accept where I am, because where I am is where I am, and to not accept where I am doesn't make any sense, because this is where we are on the map. No, we're not there on the map. Yeah, you are, Prabhu. Look at the GPS. No, we're not. We're in New Jersey. No, you're not. You're in New York. So I accept myself, but I love myself too much to stay in New York. The goal is New Jersey. That's my goal. So it's like that. Simple, right? Isn't it? So simple, only took me 50 years to figure it out. I did not know this when I was a younger devotee. But I contemplated it, studied it, and so forth. Because I wanted to deal with the guilt that naturally comes from having goals that we don't meet, and like how to deal with it. Because guilt guilt, unless it inspires you, it doesn't help you. So, if you feel guilty, but that inspires you, sure. I'm chanting bad rounds, I feel bad. That's good, you should. If you don't, something's wrong with you. I chant bad rounds every day, but, I got this new psychology, you shouldn't feel bad. No, that's not good psychology. You should feel bad. So bad enough that it motivates you to do better. But not so bad that you stop chanting. Oh, it's a use, I'm so bad, I'll never chant. That kind of guilt, that doesn't help. One teacher said, excuses are arguments for your failure. So when you make an excuse, it's like, okay, now I have this excuse, so it justifies my failure. So I have a way to fail and not feel bad. Like, why would you want that? Why would you want an excuse to fail? No, why would you want an argument for your failure? It's okay that you failed. This is why it's okay. Why would you want arguments to make it okay to fail? You don't. And that's what an excuse is. So when you understand that's what an excuse is, then you'll stop making them, because you'll realize this is stupid. It's just keeping me down. Yes? Yeah. Okay. We should stop. Okay, one more. Maybe we should just not have breakfast, then we could have questions till 10 o'clock. Yeah, no, only kidding.
Thank you so much for this class. You were talking about surrender, how it will be so different for everyone, but also you were talking about that we have our nature and we cannot really go against it. So how to put these two things together? Because it sounded like surrender, meaning like, yeah, I have to do something, but I don't want to do. And maybe something what I want to do, it's my nature.
Well, what's interesting about this is that if you do service that is your nature, you'll still have to do things you don't want to do. It's like the nature of material life, It's like, let's say, you say, I like to sing. Let's say you said that, right? And so we engage you in doing kirtan, and you go out on Harinam and like that. Then I say, what's your name?
Divyangi.
I say, Divyangi, we have this program, we rented out some big place in New York, some big hall, like for 10,000 people.
Madison Square Garden.
We hired out Madison Square Garden, and we want you to lead the kirtan. And you're like, I can lead for Harinam because nobody even listens. But I can't. How many people? Oh, like 20,000. And you'll have to give a little talk about the holy name before, right? And you say, I thought you liked to sing. He said, I do like to sing, but I'm not that good, and I'm so self-conscious and this. So I don't think we can avoid that, even in the areas we like to do. Now, if we're engaged in service, which is entirely against our nature, and that's the only service we have, we'll probably get depleted and lose our enthusiasm. So surrendering with intelligence would be to surrender to a service that inspires me. And if I'm like Jayananda, everything inspires me. But, and we should learn that also. But at the same time, we all have a nature. So what I'm saying personally, if you don't engage in service according to your nature, it's more difficult to sustain it. And as I said, you will run into all kinds of trouble in all kinds of services. It's all difficult. So that's being realistic about where we're at. You're doing a service and it's so difficult and so against your nature, you don't even want to get up in the morning. You don't want to chant your rounds. That's not good. So I'd say, well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to engage with people personally, and they have me in the office doing accounting, staring at a screen, and it's just like really bad for me, and I need to be outside, and I've always gone outside. So yeah, it's understandable. When we put you inside under a fluorescent light, staring at an Excel sheet, and you're just sitting there crying, I don't want to do this. It's like, isn't it? Like that. Or vice versa. We put you out on the street dealing with people. I don't want to deal with people. I want to deal with numbers on an Excel sheet. Numbers excite me. Okay. More power to you. They need to excite somebody because somebody has to do the counting, right? So that's also to take into consideration. So you kind of balance those. But sometimes, say, Divyangi, we need you to do the bookkeeping this week because the bookkeeper is like sick. And you're like, okay. So you do it. And you do it and you hate it and it drives you crazy. At the end of the week, you feel like really blissful. You say, I did that, I surrendered. Something like that. But to do it your whole life might be a problem. Yeah. Okay, we're going to end here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Radha Govinda ki jai, Thai Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So I'm going to New Jersey tonight, and I'll stay overnight, and then I will come back in the morning, maybe like 9:30 or something. We start at 10, but it's I'll see you for the japa workshop retreat, the japa brainwashing program. You'll be thoroughly brainwashed, I can guarantee you. Brainwashed or your money back.